What's going on, people? Guns Blazing back at it again, and all week on my way to this season's Plat 1, I've been spamming different decks that go second and just break boards. And obviously this is inferior to the going first playstyle where you just set up negates, but there are some advantages to it. First one is that you're always going to get to go second because 90% of opponents will pick to go first, and then you obviously pick to go second if you win the toss. On top of that, you get to occasionally send a big FU to the players that just set up multiple interruptions. Plus, if Konami ever releases a tournament competitive scene like they said they would, you'll have more experience with actually breaking boards when it comes to best of threes, assuming they eventually add best of three to the game, than those players that just spam going first and have absolutely no clue how to play going second. So today, let me show you a couple of decks that I was using on this going second experiment, plus some examples of some nice methodical board breaks, and don't worry, this is not just going to be a dark hole montage. So what do we have here? We have a near optimal bird up and board. Really, it's just missing DDL, but we got Morg protecting the birds under it, Ensemble Blue with 4 bounces, and Miss Valley, Apex Avion, of course, your Omni negate, and F-Zero, which is a pain to deal with. It's a monster negate, plus it's indestructible. But we have a couple answers. We have Droplet and Lightning Storm here, plus a nice little Harpy's Feather Duster off the top. So first move obviously is Lightning Storm for all the face-up attack monsters. Avian will chain obviously, and of course doing it like this makes you able to send your Lightning Storm as a cost, pretty much giving you one more free negate. The two targets are of course Avion and F-Zero because they're the negates, and all of the other monsters are just going to be destroyed by the Lightning Storm anyway. This Feather Duster pickup was actually clutch because I managed to Feather Dust the back row here, and it did matter because it is an imperm which would have stopped my combo. F-Zero attempt negate on my Beryl, even though he already knows it's negated XD. And the crazy thing about this deck, also why it's my highest win rate going second deck in this experiment, is that with very few cards left over after you use your board breaks, you can still full combo. Now obviously this is a near perfect scenario, but since we can afford to run so many more copies of the small birds than Bird Up does, this is not uncommon. And this is usually one of the bread and butter combo finishers. Unlike the other decks, we don't run many copies of Dark Hole, or Raigeki even, because we just end up leaving one fat monster on the board, boosting it up, and then going direct attacks and or crashes. Now obviously, even when we run so many board breaking cards, we will still have games where we don't even draw a single one going second, and it does suck. You know, there's always that one dude that has to comment and ask, what do you do if you don't draw your counterplay? Well, what do you think, man? Like, okay, I'll tell you, just in case you didn't think that far ahead, you probably lose. But just to be completely transparent, this playstyle is far inferior to just playing standard. Standard meaning just go first and set up your board. And that's just the harsh reality of the best of one ladder. Only reason I tried this is because I like rebelling and busting through these big cock block boards, saying I will play Yu-Gi-Oh! Through all of your interruptions. But here's exactly why it's weaker. For the going second player, in this case me, right, I have to draw the counterplay, I have to also draw my own starters, and I also have to make decisions based on what I see on the board, plus I have to play near optimally, or else I won't be able to break these fat boards. The going first player obviously has a lot less things to worry about. They just have to draw their starters and hope they don't get interrupted by a hand trap. But regardless, this is what I enjoy. This is the closest thing to feeling like the anime protagonist, having to draw all the right cards and exhaust all your resources to come up with a plan to beat the opponent. But at the same time, I do understand that the turns in Master Duel are really long, and a big drawback in always going second is having to sit through people's combos. I get that not everyone has the time for that. I can afford to because I like this game and I make content on it, but I do know that it's not for everybody. Now let me run this back and explain it because I really like this duel. It had some actual nuance to it. This guy has set up a lot of interruptions, including a Mecha Ba. It can potentially negate anything, 2 back row, and a hand trap. Now he has 1 spell negate for sure because he has an invocation in his hand, and so I have to make a decision with my spells here, which usually you want to save the Lightning Storm, but in this case Cosmic Cyclone is actually more important. Now the reason why Cyclone is more important than Lightning Storm is because it can not only destroy the traps but banish and also chain to stop the effect of a continuous trap, which we know he does run 1 continuous trap and he pulled it. Even Bird Call is more important because we need it to finish this combo. 2 Warblers and a Confit by itself is not enough. So quite unfortunate we don't get to destroy his back row, but we can just play through the back row at this point. And we can also Cyclone, like I said, the continuous Schism. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this probably goes out into window, which means we can't special summon multiple times in one turn, which we will need to do. So that's Mecha Ba and Schism down. Now we can pick up Sparrow, go Warbler, and attempt to get Sparrow out. And the fact that we have a second Sparrow is actually huge. He has a hand trap for this, which will negate it, preventing the Sparrow's search, and at the same time it summons itself onto the field. And he's probably feeling really safe right now. He has even another interruption waiting for us. As we summon our Confit, he pops this trap, which destroys it, and also sends Elder Entity, which pops our Warbler. But it's just super unfortunate he didn't think of the second Warbler, because as he cleared our board, that opened up the ability to use Warbler again. And with just the Sparrow and the Warbler, I can extend this dick all the way to get the Beryl, and to also get the blue. And as always, this ends on 2 recitals, rectals, and then also the 1 slapper, which usually it doesn't end up mattering how many mats it has on it because you're just using him for the preventing damage to yourself. But regardless, nice to have a little extra damage if you need it. And in case you don't have enough, you can always just go F0 at the end and Zeus with the Nightingale. And here's one against Drytron. I know some people just like to insta-scoop against Drytron. I can understand it, but again, I can afford to stick around, see what this guy has. And the thing is, if you're an insta-scoop player, you might not realize that sometimes people don't even end on their full board. Like, they can misplay, or they might just not have enough cards to complete their full board. In this case, this Drytron player, I don't know if he intended to end it like this, but he still does get the Beatrice Eva off, and so we know he has an orange light in the hand. And then shortly after, of course, he uses Meteornus Drytron, gets out his Ultimateness. But what I do not usually see is a 4-mat Appaloosa, which, unfortunately for him, plays right into our Lava Golem. So yeah, that's really it. So he has Ultimateness and Appaloosa, which is usually a bunch of negates, but we can easily deal with those. And he has at least 1 orange light in hand, and I think we know he has 1 Eva in hand, which he can drop to get another orange light. We also have Called by the Grave, so it's just perfect. I'm gonna admit, like, this is the blessed RNG hand, and you won't always have this. Called by the Grave is going to allow us to banish the orange light, preventing the negate, and prevent future orange lights in this turn, which I don't think he realized. He does go ahead and use the Eva to pick up another orange light and a Diviner, and he tries to use it on our Rectal, and it's pretty much a done deal from here. But being transparent again, like, this doesn't always happen, and drawing Called by the Grave is very important against this deck. Sometimes I have the Lava Golem and I manage to deal with Ultimateness, but I still can't play through the orange light negates, and they have recovery on turn 3 if I can't finish them off. Which is, again, it's just the reality of the game, right? You can counter some things sometimes, you can't counter all the things all the time. There's no one deck that has the perfect counter and answer to everything with no weaknesses. And that's something that when you realize it, you'll enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot more, and you'll enjoy life a lot more. Wait, why the hell did that get so deep for no reason? Anyways, here's a game against Numeron, and I just want to give out Numeron tips because I hate this deck, and I just want people to know how to counter it. So this is my Striker Madman variation. It's running 2 Dark Holes for whatever reason, but that could be a whole another video explanation on itself. Some people don't like Desires in this deck. But honestly, the small drawback of sometimes banishing important cards is worth the consistency that it gives to your deck. I got Battle Fader here, so I was originally gonna just end on blue, but then I realized I want to clear myself. Like, Multi-Row will get all of this stuff back. He can't Lightning Storm because of the Fader on the board. Hornet Drones can give me another monster next turn, but most importantly, he can't Numeron OTK me if I have no monsters. That's the thing, that's the weakness about the Numeron gates. They need a monster on the board to double their attack. And so I'm just playing the long con here. I even do it this turn too, where at the end of my battle phase, I go ahead, clear everything off, but then at the end, after I use my Kagari, I use these 2 to go out into Zeus. Sorry, not Zeus, Zeke. But Zeke will go ahead and do the same thing, where I'm just gonna go out, use its own effect to banish itself, and it will come back next turn. But in the meantime, he has no monsters to double up on attack. We have Ray for the follow-up, we have Engage as well. Turns out he's also running Time Lords in this deck, but I'm gonna Widow Anchor it, and I'm just gonna Cyclone the card he sets, which he's had enough at that point. And by the way, yes, I did find this Striker variation much more higher win rate than the usual, where you run 3 Ash, 3 Max C, and some Effect Veilers. And although you lose out on the Link Climb package, what you get in return is far less bricks, and also you hit 3 spells almost instantly every time. Plus, you just have mad board clear potential. And TBH, 3 Max, 3 Ash is not for every deck. Like, they're really good, yeah, and most decks can afford to put them in, but you really need to have nuance and know when a deck can even afford to fit in those. And for my small experimentation, Striker runs a lot better with fewer hand traps. Like, some people just want to negate and hand trap everything, not realizing that that doesn't necessarily win you the game, which is, I think, why I'm showing you this replay. This guy just, like, negated everything, but he ends with 1 card. And I still managed to put out a fat Zeus, which is oftentimes what happens with Striker players that add too many hand traps. And then the hand traps don't actually synergize with a deck, And some games are even just lost on opening hand because it's a deck that's already inherently bricky, and you just made it even brickier. But anyways, I'll leave you with the decks I used in this going second experiment in case you were curious. Here's pure Lyrilusc. I won't explain it too much because I've already done a couple of videos on this, but this is the most current list that I have right now. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit all of the deck lists in the description, but this one, you can find the deck list in the description of one of my recent vids, the draw one I think. And it's just a couple cards replaced with Lava Golem. This is probably my most consistent going second deck. Here's a magical musket going second deck with no hand traps. Not something I would really recommend, just something I wanted to try out. The Lyrilusc deck is far cheaper and wins a lot more too. But like, it's not horrible, you can still pretty much climb and plat with it, but it's just gonna be a lot slower than any of the competitive decks. So this is something I would recommend if you just want to have fun, just build it on an alt. Cause it does have, a more unique playstyle than most of the decks you see. And last but not least, we have Strikers, which I thought would win more than Birds, but the pure Lyrilusc is a higher win rate than this. And again, like I said, this is a lot more synergistic version of Strikers than the one that runs 3 Ash, 3 Max C, and Veiler. Like that variation is the most commonly used one, but it also bricks the most, and it's also sometimes slow at getting 3 spells into the grave. This one though, again, you can't use a link climb package because you don't have any tuners, which usually is your Ash and Effect Veilers. But again, the game plan is different. You don't really need that burst damage. You just need to get a huge board clear off and then control the game from there. And remember kids, always finish your